What I'm going to do is open the meeting at I introduce Eric, or I have Eric introduce himself. Eric, you're on mute.
Sure. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I'm not really coming in with any kind of specific perspective. I'd love to shadow John, like when he visits businesses and stuff, and I just love the mission.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We, as you guys all know, we're in a challenge, and like you wouldn't believe. And some of them, such as the restaurants, are up, they're functioning and not the food. So even though they're up and going, they aren't making the money that they're normally used to. Because if they have restricted or reduced amount of people in the restaurant, that's going to. So, Morgan, you're a business owner. Do you want to share some of the stories that you've heard with other business owners, just to give people an orient?
Business owners' ability to pivot during this time and observed. Obviously restaurants have been allowed to operate to a limited degree. And one of the challenges for some of those folks is they've had, in our case, we have a mortgage with a bank, and we were able to get 3 months deferred payment. So that saved our business. Had we not mortgage payments in and not had to do things illegally, so I think some businesses in town have been able to do some online sales and things kind of under the restrictions can be eased for some of the small retail folks to be able to put in place best practice or reopening. I know a few of the restaurants totally closed. Was really disappointed that Cancun's couldn't. On Facebook, I saw a dumpster and I thought they were just going to do some renovations and come back online, but they just said that they're gonna hold out as a self-employed person, so that I didn't have to panic. Right. I'm wondering if some of the restaurants and be at high risk. So that might have been the decision that they made. My concern is for the real small businesses, the hair salons, the nail salons. That's kind of hoping that the governor's guidance next week, and he's done a heck of a job to keep us safe. We have that, and we have a similar. We took Mr. Bartosowitz from Bushel said, why don't we use old windows to remember when we do reopen? And we've gone to touchless transactions, whereas before I had to hand a tablet to someone and sign none of your capacity can come into a retail setting. I think that's really workable, and that the gift shops around folks, they really want to shop. They really want to get out and engage with the local community. They don't want to go. I don't think they want to go to malls and things, but they really helping each other out.
I will go get my nails done as soon as they open.
Who's got a business?
Yeah, no, we've been, because we're a financial institution, we're in the field as an SBA lender, and we've been an SBA lender for quite a while now, and we've managed to throughout the area. I will say it's been the first issue in one day. This last issue, restaurants out there, we've done probably 3 out of the 4 major restaurants in the area worth of business. of business lending out to the community. So pretty proud about that. It's kind of,
How is your other lending, say other regular business lending, CNI, commercial?
seems to be, refinancing, has been, pretty active. Line banking and applications. So we've been able to, keep up with the refinance requests. I think everybody's kind of in a hold tight scenario, a hold tight circumstance. He was close to $3 million worth of refinance last month, and we'll probably do about the same this month. On the scale of, say, a Bank of America or something like that, but I think we had a pretty nice impact on via that way.
And we appreciate the value that you've added personally and the value you're.
See, yeah, some of these stories of these, these business owners, and Morgan, you were right on with your comment and safely. So.
I will put a thing out there that inventory that I had that I needed to get rid of in a quick, safe manner. As like a private citizen. Very tricky, and I didn't realize that until probably 3 weeks ago, that curbside for small business in a fix, but luckily nobody's done any cease and desists on little tiny
And in addition to the retail businesses that you guys are talking about, even the medical professions experiencing this checks for fear that they'll come across somebody sick.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's having people's mouths. So their sideline, American Dental Association and the Mass Dental Association. You guys want to talk about what you think, how the new normal will, want to say something? I jumped right into it. I didn't ask you.
No, since you guys are linked, the governor came out today with any revisions to public health matrix, if they get worse, to go back in to the current stay at home restrictions. And then phase 2 has additional industries, but no clarity on what those are. But there will, but again, for all 4 phases, there is no timing associated with these, but they have a nice. So I sent that link out to I think Carl and to John and to Chris just now.
Thank you to the town for extending the property tax relief. That June 1st, but there's no penalty or fee until the end of June. So you'll be getting my check at the end of June, which
most people in Grafton are better financially suited to deal with it, but there are pockets of people that are and said, hey, let's do this for the small business and or just the residents.
Thank you, Doreen, since you're on there.
And I'm going to ask Chris to forgive my manners after I introduce.
No, I'm just happy to be here and happy to help out. So, thank you.
I have two quick things. If the committee wants to hear about 8 Pine Street and 27 Upton. 8 Pine is 8-acre site next to the MBTA station, used to be State Hospital. We entered into a sales partner, 4 bids back on that parcel. 2 are extremely aggressive and good for the town. Offer price, one is 1.9 and the other one is 1.7. And they range in the number of residential commercial. Obviously, when that whole area looks in totality of what that village mixed use residential development, but a couple things will happen with the selection. We hope to interview on or before September 1 would be the goal. And to turn around a project that's this big, it's a 200 turnaround inside of 12 months, get it from the state, get it back, turn around and get it on the tax rolls and sold to units. I think they were varied between 250 and 304. I think I had some cheat sheets on it here a while ago, but I'm buried in paper. So we will ask town meeting to allow us to sell that parcel when we have town meeting, whenever that actually happens. It's slated for, and get that developed. So that'll be a good thing. The other one is 27 Upton, the old DPW site. There are some soil issues because right now it's R40, which is just residential, and we need it to be mixed use with housing and commercial as a gateway into. So to get rid of it and put something meaningful there that has amenities and housing close to the common, walking distance to shopping from town meeting to sell that parcel. So if we do those things, we'll be successful. Again, we'll do an RFP process, just like we did for. I'm gonna run through that quickly, but does anybody have any questions for me on those?
Sean, you're on mute.
Can you hear me? There were questions about, could the town put restrictions on at town meeting?
Yeah, through the zone change, those restrictions can be zoning related stories, but we might be sensitive for other reasons and only want 2 stories. So our RFP can say, I think this bites of the apple for restrictions. Not that I want to restrict it, I want to see the best proposal come forward and get the best yield.
We seem to be having a lot of growth with housing and obviously not as much with, as opposed to let's get some mixed use as, more residential stuff.
I don't,
To that we have a lot of, I'll say, call it a bedroom community. And homeowners, as you know, you can't keep taxing the homeowners. So now we're looking for obviously more business to help offset that. Trying to put some business not restrictions, but some.
we're changing the zone. I think that's a signal to the world that we don't want residential in that location because it's residential 40, right? Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we're a suburb of Worcester. We are a bedroom community. You can't just do, unless you have 30 all land, where someone can just do industry only and it's zoned, them telling them what their existing parking requirements are versus what they were in 1972 when they ran 3 shifts with 6,000, not residential. So, people, the economics are such, you need retail or commercial industries embedded inside that mixed use or that transit oriented development is critical. Part of Creeper Hill comes to mind, South Grafton comes to mind, this parcel at 8 Pine, 27 West, lean on retail and commercial things.
If it doesn't outright require it, but that could be something included in our development. That's the mixed use really does help with that. You can want commercial all you want, because that's actually where a lot of the return on investment comes. So from just a project financing point in that, which is what we strive to do with the VMU district, makes that more achievable for both the developer and,
Zoning now. Well,
I'd have to double check, but I believe so.
Well, we didn't, we just did the 40R district for the expedited permitting. For that part. I thought you were asking about Wyman Gordon.
No, they're still working to find a,
They have someone that's under agreement, they won't tell me which type of a warehouse, cold storage, packaging plant. It's not good for the gateway, we're not gonna bend over backwards for that, we're not gonna inhibit them or prohibit them or stand in their way. But that's not who they're selling it to.
Hmm.
At least not right now.
a, a property like you were, that may go there now, or a lifestyle.
It would be, a destination one, less than a mile off the Mass Pike. It's a prime site for everything from a trade.
It's a hotel, I would think that would be good.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, like, if you, well, there's forget for base cost or equipment and assessment on a property. And then there's obviously if you have ops, you're still only going to assess a certain tax base based on the square footage, right? So even though
As set, but the value of something like, you look at Dedham. So if you look at Dedham Place, where
Legacy Place.
Legacy Place plus investment. So I mean that, you do that, and you do the science park for Tufts and they're
Right.
successful pretty quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
93.7 right now, 93 residential, 7% business. But you do those two types out of it, though, I need workforce housing for the people who are gonna work in those places, so I need, to Sean's point, I need to have some housing that's affordable. So it's a plan, but the economic, from a development standpoint.
Unfortunately, nothing happens as fast as you want.
Back an extra 2 weeks because of COVID. I forget what date they were due, close to April 1st maybe, we pushed it back and we got them in. What are your contingencies? One of these proposers has no contingencies, they just want to pay cash. But I gotta have Mass Historic, I have to have the local historic review those proposals before we award and before we do a P&S.
John, do you have any other comments with regards to that at all?
Ask another question.
Sure.
Yeah, you can ask another question.
Well, it was not on the Grafton Common parking bylaw. I didn't know where that stood. Okay.
Tim, while you're here, do you want to talk about the pending cannabis?
I was originally supporting as many cannabis retail establishments as franchise, Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, Cold Stone Creameries, which at one point I owned one, so I know what it means. Agreement came up with the same number of retail sales. So when I start to divide that, we got to do $6 million in sales. They don't know that's what the other guy's thinking, but that's the market. They've all done their own lane, or it's 20 and 20, or 15 and 15 for two. So that very quickly, there was a petitioned article to change the percentage of retail from 20% to 50, I think it's 20. For ours, for example, the math as a percentage came out to 2.1 or 2. Proposers looking to go to 50% of the package stores, which will allow for 3 mathematically percentage wise. So that's by town meeting, whenever we have town meeting.
Oh, okay.
Did you want to comment?
Yep. Can you guys hear
Did
me
you want to
okay?
add something to that as a
Yeah.
person on the select board?
Sure. We had this discussion as not supporting at this time. 3 locations, we're still staying with. The 2 locations haven't opened yet, so the board would like to see the impact of 2 locations. That's what the board is recommending.
Okay. And just to be clear, the bylaw of the record is clear. Can you explain the process of the host agreements and how we end up signing a couple of host agreements?
This came out from the state that, people could sit down and negotiate a fee that was capped for 5 years for a host initially, just to get a feel from the board if they would be supported. One of the first groups that came to us pursuing retail sales of recreational use. And what they did is they signed, I think, 36 or 30, if you will. They were going to sign as many as they could and then go to the community, which yielded the best sale estimate. Host agreements is to have the same fundamental philosophy that we'll sign as many as we can, but you got to get approval through the state. So we had these discussions at public meetings with the applicants. MJ Market was one that was shocked by the fact that we were gonna, employ like a business strategy, because otherwise I just sit here without was, hey, whoever gets approval first wins. And it seems that 2 of them we had and complied with things like zoning and so forth, planning process. So we confirmed that to the CCC, and now they're just waiting on process. Then there's a building process, a building inspection process, then final approval from the CCC for those 2.
I want to emphasize that Tim just said was the CCC that determined the 2 that got to this point first.
Right, Chris? And so 2 approval from planning have been.
Yeah, so 2 locations for final sign off from CCC. So achieving that planning board approval is final CCC approval. They'll be able to go to the building permit phase and actually do the work that they propose at all. And so should one of these businesses not be able to fulfill their permits, depending upon how everything works out.
Well, that was the second part of the hedge, right? I mean, we hedged saying, so that was the second piece of it. If MJ Market or Resonate fall through around Route 30 or up in the one, so there's 4 total signed with the town or recreational use, even though there's only 2 available. But we went into that.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions for Tim?
Are you kicking me off the call, Jim? What is your meeting? I'm just.
Oh, let me rephrase that. I just want to make sure that the EDC gets to use the time that they have with you.
A quick question, without getting into a lot of detail, you could just say yes or no. Once a person similar to anyone that's just building a business or, building a business and starting.
Yeah, I mean, each location is unique, but in terms of approval, the process is each one does need to go to the planning board. So that and depending upon the renovations that they're doing to an existing building, or if they're creating a new building, they still need to go through
But to be precise, I know we didn't want to get into particulars, but if you have two approved from planning, right, any other business is the same.
Correct.
Thank you.
The new normal and how that's gonna affect the businesses and what we can do as a committee, as citizens. So a couple of things that I've come up with, by polling other people consist of while they have it. I'm told that it's of utmost importance to update Google or vice versa, so they should really have their hours correct. The educational meeting, we don't want to compete with the chambers, but he suggested, say, every other month you have a local restaurant and people pay for their own drinks and they pay. I thought that was quite interesting. I know Morgan suggested stuff similar like that earlier, but I think her thing was more now to get your feedback on that.
I feel like in today's climate, we would more, but I like the, I don't know, maybe there's an opportunity that you can have somebody come in and present. What thoughts on that?
Go ahead, Doreen.
Thanks. And I think that the best thing, in my opinion, that we can do for our local excited, reminding them, and I'd be concerned that we're not reaching John. I made a handful of phone calls to business owners in town just to say, what can we do as a committee to help you? And unanimously, they all said, shop local, really that. So I was thinking about, do we consider putting together some, let's say we highlight, I'll use an example of Off the Common Antiques, and we highlight, we maybe put, I don't know what it looks like. I'm open to ideas, but just remind, it's kind of like a save our local business. Personally, in my household, everything that we buy, whether it's our coffee or a gift or our groceries, hit a button on Amazon. And so I think just reminding people and having it sponsored by, from there it grows. Maybe business owners get involved with different, unique, creative ideas. One of the things that has come out of this pivoting, adapting to the new normal. And so I don't think our committee necessarily has to come up with that, because that's my 2 cents. If anyone wants to pick up from that.
There is one that just started, he's gonna pick like a different business every week or something. I have to look at the specifics, but I whoever the 50th customer is will get the $50 gift card. So I thought that was kind of a very low cost. I thought that was, again, creative and certainly stimulated people to, what's the word I'm looking for? Advertise, I guess, for lack of a better word, via social media.
Later, I'll
I'm
bring
gonna
up.
close my door because this
Yeah.
guy's making too much
Yeah.
noise.
Absolutely. And people can pool in and join online. And so we pool in all our money, which is usually a couple hundred. If you choose us, so you win a gift card, you win a local restaurant gift card. If you pick us, we'll throw in an extra $50. So
Okay.
again, just creative ways. And this is great way to help dentist office, gym locations, things that may be a lot slower to open, and how do we reaching out to them directly, finding out what we need to do to help. But I think just maybe putting to it would automatically start to grow.
Yeah, the gyms in particular have major concerns by 25–50%. And it's difficult for a business owner to make a living. An idea that came across, and obviously it's going to take a whole lot of work, and it's going to be a slow process. Restaurants are putting tables in the parking lots and things like that. So now all of a sudden but it's just an idea.
I think Cancun's at one time had wanted to do like a patio area, but they
The water's exactly where everybody wants to be.
exactly, yeah. So that's interesting, John, that you bring that up, because maybe know if they're coming back, honestly. So maybe somebody would consider reaching out to them and seeing.
I mean, if you look at the Grafton Inn in the summer, man, that outdoor patio of theirs is quite popular.
Yeah,
I'm telling you when I said that.
they do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there any prohibitive or maybe ways in which we can get around something that we could grease the skids a little bit on?
That's something I could look into, ASIS.
But that's what I'm saying. Sure. Yeah.
And I imagine you'd have to either get approval from, if it's a could not vote on, and they would put a condition that at the end of the state of emergency or whatever, then they would make the argument that the COVID-19 situation is the hardship that they need to prove. So there may be ideas of what would help them to operate if there are those regulatory barriers we can look at.
But I think you've hit it on the head. I think anything temporary that will allow them some relief would be.
Like, are there picnic tables somewhere that are already in existence that you could just, like from the school department, that you could just bring to the property?
Service.
Correct.
Right.
Or maybe you can allow table service, but sit down and be able to figure out those creative solutions.
To the 50s, where people bring the food to them while they sit in their cars.
Yeah, I want to drink a margarita in my car.
There's a tray that actually fit over you rolled the window down. In those days, you literally rolled the window and they would come out. And one of the things they used to do in some of the places was the big that, but they would put a tray that fit over your, the sill of your window, so to speak, in the car.
Wood. And now I think it's George's Seafood, and it's fantastic. You eat in the car.
So that's an interesting scenario, because I know Swirls and Scoops.
They will. Several other places like Ullman's in Westboro, and I drive by Erickson's in Maynard on my way to work. So you stay in your car to a certain point, then you go and get in line, then you get your ice cream, then you have to go back to your car.
Okay.
And I think there was one place, this was really sad. There was a place in the Cape that was doing something similar. You had to order ahead up to the window. Weren't happy to find out that they couldn't, and were really, really nasty to the employees. And the person said that's
His update.
Yeah.
It's in Mashpee. It was a bunch of college.
Lulu's out there.
I know, like, if he for some miraculous reason, the 18th seems to be this magic be a Wednesday, because I don't want people to rush the gates. We're just going to take it slow, and I would hope that people
Morgan, I just have a question. What is you mentioned like the driving, the restriction.
yeah.
Wonder if like businesses that can conduct at like the municipal center or something, I mean, they'd have to have enough demand and they'd have to have product that you could actually bring.
Like they're not able to, but yet I can take it to the post office, go in, expose myself to the post office, mail it that way.
Yeah.
No one could come into your building. So unless you're just a single owner like myself, you couldn't have employees come in. We were okay in our own personal situation. We could close down. I didn't charge my vendors either, but other businesses had to make their rent payments or their mortgages. So they were able to.
Number of business owners in Grafton, and some of the landlords have been phenomenal, and some ability the owner has, if they have a mortgage due,
Right.
then there's minimal flexibility if there's no mortgage for tenants.
Yeah. It's such a trickle down effect. I mean, honestly, everybody is affected by this. I like these patio seating and car hops, and make shopping fun.
When we get to the appropriate time, I plan to write an editorial into town and how they used to cut the prices out of things. It forced people out of business. And I think that it's the benefit of having the local businesses, having the local restaurants. It's really taken away that community that people used to experience.
Party line on that has always been, well, hey, people voted with their wallets. It turns out that smaller business to bolt, from the local hardware store, let's say, to Home Depot, to cause the local hardware store to go up was enough to put, many of these smaller people at one time out of business. Now, we have fortunately seen a very customer counts, for your local business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't think some of the business on those local businesses, I think they were just looking to save a buck based on their own personal wallet.
Maybe that's one of the messages that we can get across when we're proactively getting.
Another interesting point, especially for the following year, as we're still dealing with all of this, is time after time, 60% of their workers are now infected, but the small meatpacking plants have 0% of their workers. And it's the same thing with the stores. Okay, now God knows what will happen at Goretti's, because no one's social distance from your smaller local stores. You're certainly not going to hear it about Holden Farms, okay, that you're hearing about. So yeah, there's, the smaller stores by sheer density are
Sure, is going to be tremendous for the workers, and that being like myself or Emily, because if I get sick, I have to close. Like, my husband can't work because he will have been concerned for me and any other small business owners in Grafton is if they get the exposure and have to close. So we're, exposed because we now are able to go back to work.
To do with it. They were talking about how if you have AC air conditioners, that elevates your risk with the recirculation as opposed to the fresh air. So I think people need to be cautious.
All right,
Do
anything
want
else?
airflow.
I'm sorry, Irene, go ahead.
Looking at in the future that, yes, Grafton's been fortunate to not have many cases in town. That's when they may need assistance down the line.
Yeah. Enforce the masks.
Correct. John, we're able to open in phase 1. Here's a reminder of the local Grafton businesses. Please support them. What's that?
Jim would have asked that anyways.
Okay.
Carl, you look like you're ready to end it.
Any new business at all? Can't thank you guys enough